Happy Christmas, or whatever the hell it is you celebrate, or not. This is possibly the final JMC review of 2017. All depends on when Brad Jones's Disco comes out. The movie of today's review is the third film written and directed by Quentin Tarantino.
Jackie Brown.
For anyone wondering why this review is coming out on Christmas Day as opposed to Saturday, well, December 25th is the day that I read Jackie Brown was officially released. So this makes it the 20-year anniversary of Jackie Brown, and just how often do you get to do a 20th anniversary review for one of Quentin Tarantino's movies? Anyone who's been watching me for the past 2 years knows just what a huge fucking fanboy I am of Quentin Tarantino. He is my favorite director, has been since I was allowed to start getting into R-rated movies, and still is. And I try to do one of his movies every year, and we covered Reservoir Dogs, Pulp Fiction, and even though it was a bit of a jump ahead in time, Death Proof earlier this year, because I was doing the Grindhouse movies. And now I'm back to being on a chronological release date with Jackie Brown, and last year, in case anyone's new here, I did a very, very fucking long review of Pulp Fiction, because I didn't want to miss a fucking thing with that. It's my favorite Tarantino film, and that review is 3 hours and 36 minutes. Yeah, I went really fucking overboard on that one, and for anyone who can't handle extremely long videos, you may want to pass this one, but this is not going to be as long as that review. Don't get worried about that. I'm going to talk about everything I want to talk about, but I'm not going to go as completely overboard. I think I'm doing a little better job at it these days. And once again, I do think Pulp Fiction is still my favorite Tarantino film. It's the movie that pretty much redefined independent cinema and the way we can look at storytelling, and it's been so influential for many filmmakers, and even though I've only made one short film, including me. However, as I've been getting older and really been thinking hard, Jackie Brown is very close to being above Pulp Fiction in my book. There's still a lot of love, and because I saw Pulp Fiction first, that puts it above Jackie Brown, but these two movies are fucking phenomenal. Like, everybody will talk about how Reservoir Dogs and Pulp Fiction were the two amazing films that Tarantino started out with, and then people will jump to Kill Bill, and Jackie Brown is kind of more of a cult classic to some people. I think it's gotten a lot more recognition over the past few years, but it was one of Tarantino's more underrated films for a while. For a lot of people, it has become their #1 favorite, and Samuel Jackson himself has said that of all the films he's done with Tarantino, this is his personal favorite, and that his character here is possibly his all-time favorite.
Absolutely, positively.
I've said I love Tarantino so much over the past couple of years that it's probably getting annoying. But this movie, it is a bit different than Pulp Fiction. It has similarities with all of his movies, has his trademarks, but it's a very different type of story for him. And Jackie Brown is the only Tarantino film that is an adaptation of a novel. To be more specific, it's an adaptation of the novel Rum Punch by the late Elmore Leonard, a pretty renowned and revered crime novelist whose work has been adapted many times, but very few of the movie adaptations have been held in high regard. the main three are Jackie Brown and Get Shorty by Barry Sonnenfeld and Out of Sight by Steven Soderbergh. And they all have a bit of a loose connection. With Get Shorty, John Travolta was the star. This was one of the first films he did after Pulp Fiction brought him back into superstardom. And he actually took the part because Quentin Tarantino convinced him that it would be the perfect follow-up to his comeback, and he was absolutely fucking right on that one. And Out of Sight, while it has a completely different story, it apparently takes place in the same universe as Jackie Brown, in the sense that a character who plays a big part in Jackie Brown has a cameo in Out of Sight, and it's the same actor, so they must be in the same universe. And Jackie Brown, back when it was in like pre-production, Tarantino, nervous about what Elmore Leonard would think, showed him the script, and Leonard loved it and said it was both the best adaptation of his work as well as possibly the greatest movie script he had ever read. That's some pretty good praise that'll give you some confidence, and there were a few differences. One, he changed the title, and in the book the main character's name is Jackie Burke, and here Jackie Brown. And also in the book the main character is white, but here in the movie she's black. And in the film she is played by 1970s blaxploitation legend Pam Grier, one of the most badass black ladies to have ever graced the screen. And this film was Pam, like John Travolta in Pulp Fiction, it was Pam Grier's comeback along with a few other actors in the film. And she was incredible. Pam Grier's performance here, she carries this film strongly. Like, she's not the only actor to steal the show, but she was a great lead. She played a very smart, tough character who knew how to stay ahead of the other characters and was willing to take risks, but wasn't stupid, and you never really knew what was going on inside her head most of the time. And by the end, she's still a bit of a sneaky thief, I guess, good nickname for her. But you really see that she's not that bad, and without really having to resort to any violence, Pam Grier comes off as one of the most badass women you will ever see in a film. It's been rumored that Tarantino changed the character's name to Brown as a tribute to her 1970s movie Foxy Brown, although it's been a little debatable on that. This movie has a great soundtrack, like probably one of the top 3 best Tarantino soundtracks. The film opens with the soundtrack kicking in pretty much right away. Like most movies, like we get the studio logo and wait until like maybe the opening credits start for the song to kick in. Here, the song plays the second you push play on the DVD. We see the Miramax logo and we hear Across 110th Street by the late Bobby Womack. And then we get this pretty well done tribute to the Graduates opening credits sequence with Pam Grier going through an airport with the opening credits playing over her and her rushing to get to her plane, and it just puts you in the right energized mood. Lets you know this is going to be a fun ride, and
You don't know what you do till you put under pressure. Cross 110th Street is a hell of a tester.
pretty fucking kick-ass song. And just for anyone who might be a bitch when it comes to movies that are over 2 hours, Jackie Brown is a really long movie. Like, it's not Peter Jackson long. It's more like Christopher Nolan long. Over 2 hours, but just under 3. And for me at least, it never wavers, it never feels slow. Everything we see, it feels necessary and keeps you completely interested the whole way. Like most Tarantino films, it feels like a fucking journey, taking you with all these characters and showing an amazing story from beginning, after the beginning, middle, somewhere in between, finale, and then the end. Just goes all the way through. Goes beyond the usual 3-act story structure. After the opening, we are introduced to what will be the film's prime antagonist, Ordell Roby, played by Samuel Jackson, who is chilling in his LA home, and that's another thing. In the book, it's set in Miami. In the film, it's in Los Angeles. Ordell Roby is a gun dealer.
They advertised this Tech-9 as the most popular gun in American crime. Can you believe that shit? It actually says that in the little booklet that comes with it.
It's a pretty successful little business he's put together. He talks about how he's made about $500,000 in cash. And the film opens with him chilling in his beach house with his fresh out of prison buddy, Louis Gara, played by Robert De Niro. And sitting on the side is his stoner surfer lady friend, Melanie, played by Bridget Fonda, who I'm not sure a lot of people even remember was in movies.
Now, that motherfucker rolling in cash. Got himself a yacht with all kind of high-tech navigational shit on it.
But anyway, Ordell is showing Louis some kind of gun sale video called Chicks Who Love Guns, where we see these bodybuilder chicks firing machine guns and acting all cute in their bikinis, holding them up.
Hi, I'm Sydney. I'm a personal trainer and Miss Orange County finalist.
Which leads to Samuel Jackson giving the film's most memorable line, AK-47, the very best there is.
When you absolutely, positively got to kill every motherfucker in the room, except no substitutes.
Ordell Roby is one of Samuel Jackson's top 5 greatest roles he has ever done, in my opinion. The character is just cool, threatening, slick, and very evil. I mean, Jules Winfield was his breakout role, and he played such a very complex character in that film, except Jules Winfield, he was a bad man who, at the end, had a chance of redeeming himself after working as a hitman. Here, Ordell Roby is a cold-blooded, ruthless criminal who will kill anyone that gets in his way or poses a threat to his business. He has a fun side, but once he thinks something's up or someone's gone on his bad side, then the nice personality just disappears. Pretty early in the film, we get a moment where the phone rings and he says to Melanie,
Grab that for me, would you, babe? You know it's for you.
With over 50
Girl, don't make me put my foot in your ass.
the AK-47 is the most popular.
and after a pretty long stare, like the Melanie character, she never acts afraid of Ordell, but she acts more pissed when she finally gets up to answer the phone. But it's clear, like, she realizes, yeah, he means it. But then he goes back to being fun and just lounging back.
It's about a man in New York wants a 9mm Smith & Wesson model 5946. And why does he want it? Because it's the same gun that nigga on New York Undercover uses. Because of that nigga, I'm gonna make $12.50 off of this nigga.
Great character, fun to watch, and when it's time to hate him, I hate him. But even then, he's still a fucking cool, badass motherfucker. And Samuel Jackson's look in this film, which was his own idea, it's pretty fucking awesome. Like, he looks like somebody who you do not want to piss off. He looks like a very threatening person here. Like, when he smiles, you almost forget, but once he looks mad, you know. He has very long hair that's usually tied back in a ponytail. When I tell people that I got my inspiration to grow my hair out when I was 14 by watching Travolta in Pulp Fiction, someone will like, what, not from Ordell? And he also has this very long, thin goatee, like it's like a little bit of hair the size of the tip of my finger on the tip of his chin that's just long, braided, and has beads on it. And I actually was inspired to try and grow my goatee out very long to try and get it like that, but my facial hair is patchy enough as it is, and I found that having a very long goatee can be a bitch to manage. So that didn't work out. But it was worth trying. Another thing I got from Jackie Brown is my love of screwdrivers. Ordell is drinking them throughout the film, constantly asking for them at bars or friends' houses, and I like the way he looks with it, and it was one of the first drinks I made back when I was a teenager, back when I wasn't allowed. And as an adult, I love them. And Robert De Niro as Louis Gara. Louis is an old partner of Ordell from back in the day, and he's just gotten out of prison after being away for a few months shy of 4 years. And it's pretty clear he's not cut out for the crime life anymore. He's pretty old, and he looks it. And he's very tired, like, the life's just been sucked out of him. Seems like a guy whose best choice is to just sit back and try to find a decent retirement plan. But he goes with Ordell, and Ordell wants him to come with him because they're best friends, and Louis and Melanie start a sort of relationship. They're not really friends, they're not really lovers, they're more like fuck buddies.
That was fun.
Or stone buddies. Like, Melanie is always smoking pot in most of the scenes she's in, and she offers some to the old, tired Nero, and he just goes.
Take your thumb off the car.
And this is something you probably thought you'd never see. A pothead Robert De Niro token it up with Bridget Fonda. And I like this moment where Ordell looks at him and says, "Oh, so y'all a bunch of Cheech and Chongs, huh?"
That shit's gonna rob you of your ambition.
Not if your ambition is to get high and watch TV.
Oh, y'all a couple Cheech and Chongs, huh?
And then shortly after that, Ordell gets a call from someone who works for him named Beaumont, who has been arrested and needs to be bailed out. Ordell goes to a bail bondsman. Bail bondsman is a guy named Max Cherry in his mid-50s, played by another acting veteran of the 70s and 80s, Robert Forster.
Yeah, I'd like you to make sure that he's there when I get there. And look, this is second chance for him. They don't get... That's correct.
in a role that was as much for him as it was for Pam Grier. A huge comeback that even got him an Oscar nomination for Best Supporting Actor. He lost to Robin Williams for Good Will Hunting, but it was a pretty incredible performance that was definitely deserving of a nomination, and a subtle theme that's not elaborated on too much, but is the theme of people who were big in their youth or had a lot going on when they were younger are now in the midlife crisis part of their life, or just old and trying to get by, trying to survive, and thinking about what they want to do now, or thinking about what they wish they could have been back in the day. I like those kind of stories. Just, they feel very down to earth, very relatable, and I know, I'm very young. I'm only 22, but I feel tired, and at times I do feel older inside. Ordell bails out Beaumont, and this leads to a very funny scene where, after having to pay $10,000 to get his ass out, Ordell goes to Beaumont's home, where Beaumont, Chris Tucker, in probably the greatest role he'll ever have, that most people will probably be able to tolerate of him, because I know he annoys a lot of people.
They talking like they serious as hell. Give me time for that machine gun shit.
Oh, come on, man. They're just trying to put a fright in your ass.
If that's what they doing, they done did it.
He's high, and Ordell tells him he needs him to do him a favor, kind of as a thank you for bailing him out, and Beaumont first is like, oh man, it's late, I'm home, I'm high, and Ordell's like, and why are you home?
You home because I spent $10,000 to get your ass home.
One other great scene where Ordell can switch from friendly to downright scary. And he gets Beaumont to come with him for a job, he says. And he says that he's going to sell some machine guns to Koreans down in Koreatown. Now, I'm not too worried because by default Asians aren't the violent type. Or they're the more reliable type. He says something like that. And I'm part Asian, so I guess he's kind of right on that one. And then he goes, but I got a rule. Never do business with anyone you've never done business before without backup. And that's what you are. Backup. And he tells him what he wants him to do is to get in this trunk. And
I'm going to tell him I'm going in the trunk to show him the goods. When I open the trunk, you pop up and rack this motherfucker.
Man, fuck that shit. I ain't finna shoot nobody.
And Beaumont, just becoming an arrogant little pissant, goes, man, you must be out of your fucking mind thinking I'm gonna get in this dirty-ass trunk. And Jackson's like, we're just going to Koreatown. You ain't gonna be in here more than 10 minutes. And then he yells, I ain't being here in no minutes, man. Why can't I ride up front with you? I'm not getting no dirty-ass trunk. I got a problem with small spaces. And then Ordell, I love this line, he goes, and I got problems paying $10,000 on ungrateful peanut-head niggers, but I did it. Just seeing Samuel Jackson put down Chris Tucker, insult him, it's so fucking funny, I love it. And after a bit of prodding and the promise of food, the very high Beaumont's like, exactly how long I gotta be in this trunk? And we get two good lines from Chris Tucker before his performance comes to an end, where he says, kind of surrendering and giving in to Ordell's orders, you can catch a nigger off guard with this shit. And when he gets in the trunk, he's like, you say 10 minutes, and then he just slams it on him and he yells, hey, don't be slamming my head, you ponytail wearing motherfucker. And then after that, we get a very chilling scene where Ordell slowly drives out, and instead of going to Koreatown, he just drives in a circle with a pretty smooth song playing. He gets out and pops the trunk and it's very far away, actually. In fact, Jackie Brown is the least violent film Quentin Tarantino has ever made, and I read that he made it that way just as a way to show the critics, you whine about violence, well, I'll show you I can do it and still be fucking awesome. Jackie Brown, while it is arguably underrated, there are some people who have made it clear that they do not like Quentin Tarantino, who have said that they love Jackie Brown. Like, it's one of the films, like, Jackie Brown, it has Tarantino's trademarks in them. It has the well-written dialogue and cinematography and pace. But as far as, like, the story goes, like, the way it's unfolded, and a few other small things that it's hard for me to really put a point on. It is the most un-Tarantino film I think you can find. It has everything you would expect, but at the same time is completely different than what you would expect. As stupid as that sounds, that's the best way I can put it. Anyway, Ordell killed Beaumont because he feels Beaumont is the type who would snitch out his friends to avoid jail time. And Ordell is proved right. Because shortly after that, Jackie Brown, who works as a airline stewardess, it's her job to transport Ordell's money back and forth between Los Angeles and the place down in Mexico where he keeps all of his money. She is busted by an ATF agent named Ray Nicolette, played by none other than Michael Keaton, and an LA detective named Mark Dargis, played by Michael Bowen, who would later play Buck in Kill Bill Volume 1. And the two of them arrest her after they search her bag and find the money she was transporting, along with a small baggie of cocaine, which was slipped in by Ordell's partner down in Mexico. And Ordell, seeing her arrest, bails her out as well. And the bail bondsman, Max Cherry, is suspicious of how the first person he bailed out is now dead. But he's a bail bondsman and he doesn't ask questions. He just does his job and doesn't speak up unless absolutely necessary. Max goes and picks up Jackie, and we get one of the most interesting parts of the story. Max, upon seeing Jackie, immediately finds her attractive and very fascinated by her. And another very interesting relationship is formed. It never completely crosses into lover territory, but the connection between them is very strong, and it takes Jackie a little while to realize it, but she soon finds that Max is pretty much the only person she can trust. And the way we see them get to know each other, slowly at first, the way their story unfolds is pretty well done. It feels real. And it's another thing my best friend likes is this very subtle, not in your face romance between a much older couple. Jackie is 44 and Max reveals later he's 56, and that's something you see a lot of, romance amongst older generations of people. You buy their relationship, and they're fun to watch, and you hope it could work out, and you think they make a good fit for each other. They both feel like people who have had very long, draining lives, and it's a good thing to connect on. And then Max drops Jackie off at her home where Ordell is waiting. And he goes in, getting ready to kill her once he finds out what he needs to know. This is possibly the most scary sequence in the film, where he goes in and he acts all charming. Well, Jackie's not putting up with any shit, but is being nice until she sees any reason not to be, and throughout their conversation, Ordell subtly dims the lights, making the scene all the more intense and unclear of what's going to happen. And Jackie says all the answers that neither confirm nor deny that she might have let something slip, which she hasn't. And this leads to a moment where we see Ordell standing up against her with his hands around her neck. Hasn't done anything violent yet. And we see a split screen where on one side it's Jackie and Ordell, and the other it's Max driving back to his office. And once he gets back there, he opens his glove box and sees that his gun is missing. And then all of a sudden we hear a click, and
Is that what I think it is?
What do you think it is?
I think it's a gun pressed up against my dick.
and she then grabs his gun and holds him at gunpoint with both hands. Wouldn't be a Tarantino film without it. And she makes him sit down and listen to her.
Start pitting black against black. That's how they do. You know, been doing it since the beginning.
Shut your raggedy ass up and sit the fuck down.
She is able to work out a deal with Ordell, and it's pretty well handled, feels believable, and from there the film becomes about Jackie trying to find a way for her to get out of the life, I guess you'd call it, while playing everybody against each other. She convinces the cops that she will help them get Ordell, and she convinces Ordell that she will help him be able to evade the police and get out with all of his money, which has to be smuggled into the US from Mexico. And she lets both parties know some things that both parties know, while others that only one is privy to. And all the while, the only person who she lets on more facts about, it's unclear if she tells him every little detail, but the one person who knows the most is Max. And why he goes along? Well, one is because he likes her, and maybe he feels the need to do something exciting with his life, do something meaningful after being in the bail bonds business for probably half his life. And I wish I had a better way of describing it, but the way they come together, the way they work together, so great. It's so, these characters are smart, but they only have to go on what they know, which isn't much. And while this is going on, Melanie tries to convince Lewis to go against Ordell and take the $500,000 for her and him, but really it's all about her. Melanie is convinced Ordell is a fuck-up, that he's got too big an ego, which he does, but even then, Ordell is smarter than Melanie thinks, and I think the true arrogant and egotist is the Melanie character. Like, when it becomes clear that Lewis is not going to go against Ordell, she tries to get it all for herself, and I'll just say here, it ends badly. And before I get into the spoiler territory, which I will have to get into if I want to avoid ruining the film for anyone who might not have seen it, something that I didn't notice until I watched this movie with my grandfather. Like, he was the first person to point this out, and what can I say? I love watching movies with my grandfather. He's a fun old man, and something he pointed out was how nobody in this film is, well, they're obviously not perfect, but there are certain things in it that he likes. Like, not everything goes smoothly, like not even small things. For example, character hands another character a pair of keys, and the person that drops it when they try to take them.
Got the key, right?
And scenes where characters, when executing their plans, are stressed, and while they go right, it's clear they're trying hard to do it right, or else they fuck up, and just feels real, like, feels very human. A good line before the big plan is unfolded is when Jackie is talking about what she's doing with Ordell and Ray Nicolette to Max Cherry, and she thinks that Nicolette doesn't suspect a thing, that he's buying the stories that she's giving him, and well, he is. Max, I like this line, like, Jackie's very smart, she's thought this through, and Max is smart too, and he knows that she can handle herself, but he's just being cautious, pointing out,
oh yeah, I got him thinking that Ordell's real nervous, and they love thinking that he's scared of him.
You know, a good cop will never let you know that he knows you're full of shit.
and when it comes time for the big plan, aka the money exchange, where Jackie is going to try and smuggle $500,000 into the US, while also taking $50,000, which the ATF knows about, to throw them off. The plan is she is going to do a money exchange with one of Ordell's people. All the while, before that, she will switch out the $500,000 in a dressing room with another one of Ordell's people. And for that, it will be Melanie. But the supposed bag that she gives Melanie is actually weighted with books to fool her.
I put a cherry on top. Booyah!
The actual $500,000 she leaves in the dressing room, and she goes down to the ATF. She claims that Melanie stole the $50,000 from her. And after playing everything in chronological order, we get the traditional Tarantino flashback sequence, where we cut back a few minutes, where we see Lewis and Melanie show up, and
Come on, goddamn, we're late. Come on.
Melanie is not really taking the job seriously, thinking she just goes in, grabs the money, and leaves. And runs off. While Lewis, it's clear, after being out of the game for so long and sitting around getting high, he is just not ready for this, and he's also very stressed, and doesn't want the job to go bad. Lewis is sweating and just tense and is being very firm and violent at times with Melanie.
Hey, would you let go?
And while Lewis is being a complete fucking asshole in this scene, Melanie is just being a bratty little bitch. And what follows is both extremely shocking, but also you can't blame him.
Is it this aisle, Louis? Is it? Louis?
Melanie calls Lewis and Ordell fuck-ups, but she is practically poking a bull with a stick at this point. Lewis is so fucking angry, and even after he threatened to hit her, she continues to poke him and mock him, and he's very stressed, and he looks like he's gonna just fall on the ground at any point. And he says to her, "Listen, don't say another fucking word, alright? Just keep your mouth shut. Just do it." And just... the way he looks stressed, I think a lot of people can relate to that, but what he does next is what a lot of people will jump at.
I mean, don't say one fucking word, okay?
Okay, Louis.
And then he just walks on out to the van, which they were having trouble finding, as if nothing just happened. And Melanie's death, for me and anyone else who sees it for the first time, it just makes you go, whoa! Just did not see that coming. And maybe on the second viewing, it's pretty funny also. Just so shocking, like, whoa, damn. And it's not that graphic either. Like, it feels a little surreal to watch Bridget Fonda in this movie, knowing that she's going to get just the life shot out of her. But yeah, it just happens. It's so quick, so unexpected. And then we go back in time again, and we see that Max is also at the mall, and he's briefly spotted by Lewis, and having his head all jumbled up, doesn't think much of it, so he doesn't approach him. And once Lewis and Melanie leave, and then Jackie leaves, Max goes into the dressing room, finds the bag with the actual $500,000, and like a smooth criminal, just walks out. Robert Forster, he had to have been so fucking hyped when he saw this scene for the first time. He looks like the coolest old man you could ever imagine. And then we cut to Ordell meeting up with Lewis, and next to Beaumont's scene, this is also a very funny scene where Ordell asks, "Where's Melanie?" And Lewis, he tries to play it off almost like it wasn't anything that serious, saying, "Oh, she started getting pissy with me, really getting my fucking nerves, man."
So what, you left her there?
I shot her.
You shot Melanie?
Twice.
It's just so fucking casual the way he says it. And Ordell, his face, Samuel Jackson, really nails the look of shock that comes in, just like, "You shot her? Is she dead?" And then we get this whole kind of who's on first bit where he's like, "Yeah, pretty much." "What do you mean pretty much? Is she dead?" "Yeah, I think." "What do you mean you think? That ain't no fucking answer. Is she dead?" And he's like, yes, she's dead." And Ordell at first stands by his friend, saying, "If you had to do it, you had to do it."
What we don't want is that bitch surviving on us. On anybody but that woman.
And then Ordell opens the bag and sees that it's filled with books and $40,000 of the money that they were going to use to throw the ATF off. And Ordell starts freaking out and questions Lewis if he had anything to do with this, which Lewis is offended at, and
Fuck you for asking me that.
Hey, I'm not just trying to set me up.
Fuck you,
She
man.
didn't ask me.
Fuck you, brother. How could you fucking ask me that?
Ordell has him stop the car and thinking hard and checking the gun that Lewis used to shoot Melanie. Ordell realizes that Jackie has played them, and it's this scene where I truly wanted Ordell to get his just desserts. After finding out that Lewis saw Max Cherry and didn't think anything of it.
You see Max Cherry in the dress department where we... Man, look at me when I'm talking to you.
Saying another good line. You met your bail bondsman? You know those motherfuckers are as crooked as a barrel of snakes. And Lewis says, I'm trying to tell you, trying to be reasonable. And then Ordell's like, you want to give me reasons?
The reason is, your ass ain't worth the shit no more.
You better fucking back off, man.
I love this line. So sad and tragic. What happened to you, man? Your ass used to be beautiful.
What the fuck happened to you, man? Your ass used to be beautiful.
I hated Ordell in this scene because even though Lewis had become a wreck and had really fucked up with killing Melanie, he was Ordell's best friend, and to see him kill his best friend made me just made me realize he really was a horrible, just no good in him piece of shit. So with Lewis and Melanie dead, Ordell goes into hiding, determined to get his money before he leaves.
I ain't going no goddamn way anyway till I get my motherfucking money.
Jackie is questioned by Ray Nicolette, and Ray showing in this scene that while he doesn't get everything right, he's not stupid. Like, he suspects something else is going on, but he has absolutely no evidence. And Jackie, I feel, does a convincing enough job with the answering of his questions that Nicolette says, you're not in any trouble, but you better hope we find Ordell before he finds you. He thinks there might be something, but doesn't have anything to go on, and what he is working on, that's what he has to focus on. Michael Keaton as Ray Nicolette. It's a pretty cool performance. He plays a guy who is serious, tough, but also a bit of a dork, which makes him a bit charming. And Michael Bowen as Mark Dargis. He's more of the asshole cop type, but he was a good partner to Nicolette, and Michael Bowen is fun, whether it be gives no sympathy asshole LA cop or a rapist pimping nurse. He's a fun character actor. And while hiding out with some crack whore, it seems.
Damn, girl, how you live like this?
Like what?
Like this? This some repugnant shit.
Letting down his long hair for the first time in the film, calls Max Cherry's office, where Max is, I guess the term is tracker, the guy that helps him find criminals who don't want to be found. Winston answers.
Bail bonds. Yeah, Max there? He ain't here right now, man. But where he at? Out of town?
And showing you that this is definitely a 90s movie, gives him Max's beeper number.
He's around, man. Well, give me his home number. No, I give you his beeper number. All right, break off the beeper number, nigga.
Ordell and Max have a wonderfully shot scene where we never see Ordell's face, just the back of his head as he's sitting on the couch, presumably smoking weed. And Max, I don't know if he's playing dumb, but he's not letting on that he knows anything vital. Tries to get Ordell to tell him where he is, and Ordell says, "I know you helped her. And Jackie can tell me any story that comes into her little head, as long as at the end of that story I get my motherfucking money. Because if I don't get my motherfucking money, well then you tell her to think about old Beaumont. And if she tries going to the cops, you tell her I will name her as my #1 accessory, and we will go up and handcuff motherfucking Hand." And Winston, who is played by Tommy Tiny Lister Jr., is able to find out where Ordell is, and Max, showing that he's a brave old fuck, goes to Ordell.
What's wrong with you knocking on the door like the goddamn police? You looking to get shot?
Ordell immediately is suspicious and at this point extremely paranoid, holds him at gunpoint and tries to make him tell him where Jackie is. And Max, showing that he is pretty calm under pressure, it's another thing him and Jackie have in common, is able to get Ordell to come with him to his office where Jackie is, and saying they will give him his money there, and that the reason they did all the switching was to help him when the ATF was getting too, or Melanie was getting too onto them. And Ordell, who at this point seems is just wanting his money, agrees, but he makes it clear if either of them try to pull one on him, if the money isn't there, he is going to kill them both.
She started giving me some bullshit about it ain't there, and we gotta go someplace else and get it. I'm gonna shoot you in the head right then and there.
On the drive there, they play a song that Jackie introduced him to.
Know you like the Delphonics?
Don't I Blow Your Mind by the Delphonics, which is a very nice song. Plays pretty well against a sequence that would normally have like intense action movie music playing against it. And the final showdown, Max and Ordell show up, and first time watching this, you have no fucking idea what's gonna happen. Ordell walks in, putting on his nice guy personality, and then all of a sudden, Nicolette shows up.
Ray's got a gun!
This is something that I love about Tarantino. He can have showdowns that can end pretty fast, but they never feel underwhelming. Ordell's death is fast but shocking and carries a lot of emotion with it. Not every big showdown has to be overly flashy to have a good effect to it. And when it's over, Jackie, Max, the audience, we all feel like we got some room to breathe. After checking that Ordell is dead, we get this above shot of Samuel Jackson on the ground, almost looking upside down. And the shot of his lifeless body, it is just so haunting to look at. And then we cut to 3 days later after, I guess, all the who's and what's legal-wise have been worked out, where Jackie meets Max one more time at his office, and Max, who earlier said he was planning to leave the bail bonds business, possibly because of Jackie, seems to be back in his business, and it's unclear why. Maybe because feels like he has to do a job that this is part of his life. The final scene is kind of a bittersweet scene for me. Jackie shows up, thanking Max for being able to secretly give her the money, and she asks if he wants a bigger cut than he took, but he says he's okay with it. And we get just a completely adorable moment between them where they slowly move closer to each other. They rub noses in almost a cute animal way. I mean, like when you see two animals rubbing against each other. And they share a pretty sweet kiss. Jackie asks if Max would go with her to Spain, which is where she plans to retire. And I don't know if he completely says no. He says not for him, but it's clear he doesn't want to see her go. And getting a phone call from a new client, he watches her leave and she says she'll send him a postcard. And this film's ending is very ambiguous for me. After Jackie drives away, Max asks his client to call back, and watching her go, the look on his face, it's not a heartbroken face. It's a face that says, should I go after her? Even though it could seem too late, it really isn't. And the shot gets kind of blurry and he walks back to his office and we see him from behind do this. He's thinking. And we cut to Jackie, who looks a little sad that Max isn't with her, but she starts to sing along to the song playing on the radio, which puts her in a good mood. And what is that song? Across 110th Street. Cut to black and we see written for the screen and directed by Quentin Tarantino. Many people have debated this ending, wondering, did Max stay or did he go? He should have gone with her, and me, I think they should have had a more they got together ending a little bit, but another part of me thinks the ambiguity makes it all the more emotional. And it wasn't a very you don't know how it'll end type of ending. Didn't seem too down. It seemed pretty positive, like it could end pretty well for them. That's just how I take it. I don't know for sure, I have no way of knowing, but I have a strong... if I had to choose, I would lean towards they might end up together. They are really a great older couple, and I don't know what else to say. I love them, and I hope they get together in this universe. And that's the film Jackie Brown. There's a couple of scenes I skimmed over, but if I went over every single individual detail, this review would be twice as long as the fucking movie. But that's the film, and I love it. I think it's one of Quentin Tarantino's greatest films. Is his number 2 best film in my opinion, right up there with Pulp Fiction, and maybe in a few years as I get older, because opinions change, it might take the number 1 place above Pulp Fiction. Hasn't right now, but it might someday. And I only have a few quick things I just want to mention, just a few trivia facts. The movie has a few cameo appearances in it. The most noticeable one being Sid Haig, aka Captain Spaulding from House of a Thousand Corpses and the Devil's Rejects, playing the judge at Jackie's arraignment when she's originally arrested. It's a pretty brief cameo. He doesn't get to do much other than say what a judge is supposed to say and do. Haig and Pam Grier are friends. They had worked together on many films in the 70s. A lot of them for legendary schlock filmmaker Jack Hill. And when Grier saw that Sid Haig, who still looks like himself, like bald and the graying beard, saw him as the judge wearing the robes, she didn't know it was going to be him, and she just burst out laughing when she saw him came on set. And there's a public defender in the court scene who is played by, uncredited, Denise Crosby of all people. She pretty much only has 1 or 2 lines, and maybe she was in the neighborhood and Quentin thought, let's give Tasha Nar a small part in this movie. And Tarantino himself, as usual, has a small cameo, and this is probably the smallest cameo he's done, even smaller than his corpse getting scalped in Inglourious Bastards cameo. He's the answering machine voice on Jackie's answering machine when she gets a message from Max Cherry. And you can kind of hear it in him. He's like, "You have one message." Trying to sound robotic, which for a lot of people, they probably already think Tarantino is robotic as far as being an actor. I made it clear, I don't think Tarantino is a great actor, but he's not terrible either. Like, he plays weaselly characters in the roles he casts himself in, and he plays them pretty well. The film was produced by his, for a long time, long producing partner, Lawrence Bender, and the cinematography was done by Guillermo Navarro, who I believe had worked on 4 Rooms with them, and this was his last collaboration with Quentin, and the editing was done by Quentin's longtime editing compadre, Sally Menke. And just because it's funny, the casting for this movie was done by Robin M. Mitchell and someone who was actually named Jackie Brown. Jaki, but still, that's fucking funny. And like most of his movies, the executive producers were... This is going to be awkward to see their names on my favorite movies from now on. The Weinstein Brothers. And if anyone's wondering what my thoughts are on that, it's tragic, disturbing, and they produced some of my favorite movies, but they were just mostly the executive producers. And when it comes to movies, while producers and executive producers are vital parts, they're not the brain power behind the scripting and the vision of the film, so not like it's a personal jab in the heart. And it seems like Quentin's moving on to a new studio, so Seems like for him at least things are working out fine. Jackie Brown got a lot of great reception when it came out, and one of the few things about it that caused a little controversy was all the usages of the word nigger in the film. According to IMDb, which is always debatable, the word is used 38 times, which, for anyone who got upset about that, you wish you could go back in time and say, just wait for Django Unchained. And no secret, any diehard Tarantino fan or film buff, Spike Lee threw a real big bitch fit over all the usages of nigger in this film, and Samuel Jackson gave a good defense, saying, in the context of this story, it fits, makes sense, and Jackson said, Jackie Brown's a good film, and Spike hasn't made one of those in years. Which put a very long strain on Spike Lee and Samuel L. Jackson's working relationship. Honestly, I don't think much was lost, and Quentin Tarantino gave a very funny comeback where he said, Spike would have to stand on a chair to kiss my ass. I agree with Samuel Jackson and Tarantino. Depending on the story, if it fits, and he can write what he wants, and Spike Lee, the way he gets upset at other filmmakers, I think he's just a pissy little black midget who, if he didn't have something to complain about, he wouldn't be as busy as he is. Other actors who were considered for the role of Max Cherry were Gene Hackman, Paul Newman, and John Saxon, and Robert Forster completely owned this role. It would have been interesting if any of them had ended up with the part, especially Gene Hackman. And lastly, Pam Grier auditioned for Rosanna Arquette's role in Pulp Fiction, but Tarantino couldn't buy that she would be a woman that would put up with that much yelling and pushing around as that character in Pulp Fiction put up with. Because, yeah, like Pam Grier is not a lady who will just stand around and take verbal abuse. So when he came out for this film, he called her in, feeling it was a more fitting role, and when she went to meet him in his office, she saw posters for all of her blaxploitation films, and she asked, "Did you put these up because I was coming?" And he said, "Actually, I was thinking of taking them down because you were coming." I just think that's a touching story, and I don't know really where to end on this. I love this movie. I give it a 9.8 out of 10 stars. It is fucking amazing. Go see it, and it's got a kick-ass soundtrack. It was worked by the Delphonics, Randy Crawford, Bloodstone, and Bobby Womack, and many more. Hope everybody's having a good holiday season, and if you're not really down with the holiday season, hope you find something that makes you feel good. Maybe this movie. And man, this has been quite a year. I've done a lot this year. Tried new formats for my videos. I've worked with a new person or two, and a lot going on in the world, and I love making video reviews on YouTube, and since I started doing it, I feel alive and productive, and for the people who have been watching me all this time and who have stuck around, or anyone who's come in, I just want to say thank you very much, and hope you've enjoyed what I've put out. Hope you've enjoyed this video, and gonna take a break after the year ends, and there might be some new things coming. Maybe I'll just do the same thing, but with a better editing software. We'll see. And this has been a good, productive, creative year for me. See you again, hopefully soon, my movie niggas.